All right. Hi, I'm John Greathouse, and I'm here with Hannah Mendoza. She is the co-founder and CEO of Clevr Blends. And quite coincidentally, she was a former student. I teach at UC Santa Barbara. I teach entrepreneurship. That's not why Hannah is here with me today. She's here because she has an incredibly exciting company, and she's really done some really amazing things that I think there's lots of lessons for entrepreneurs here. I will say, and I'm not rewriting history just because Hannah's been successful now. I will say, Hannah, there's certain students that stand out. I mean, you just kind of can tell that certain students are more mature, more focused, more sort of, eye on the prize. You were definitely one of those students. So when I found out about your success, I was like, oh, yeah, of course, and not surprised. So thank you for taking the time. I know you're
I
crazy.
used to get made fun of for sitting. I would always sit at the front of the class and always bring really noisy snacks. So I'm
I don't
glad
remember
that
the
didn't
snack.
distract. Like always whole carrots that were raw and would be sitting there like eating those. And so I'm glad that that wasn't too much of a distraction.
No, I don't remember the raw carrots, but that actually fits in with your current company quite closely, quite clearly. So I like to, not always, but sometimes I will ask, especially younger people, growing up, were you entrepreneurial? Did you live in a household that really encouraged that? And if so, we'd love to hear a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. You know, entrepreneurial is one way of saying it. I definitely had a lot of schemes.
Yes.
And I don't know if it particularly reflects well on me, but I think my first venture was at age 7. I would go and bulk buy big trays of cookies from our local baker. I grew up just outside of London,
Yep.
and also cans of whipped cream.
Oh,
And I would sell the cookies with the whipped cream on top at like a 500% markup
so
to the
was
kids.
the whipped cream an upsell or was
Oh,
that?
it was an upsell. It was an upsell, and you could also buy it separately as its own item, which was
Oh,
just like directly into someone's hand, not
nice.
hygienic at all. Um, and would like mark it up. And on the one hand, it's kind of taking, advantage of kids being out of sight of their parents and feeding them unhealthy things, which is definitely not where I'm at right now in my career.
Totally, totally.
But I did give all the money to a local charity, and so
Oh,
I feel like I redeemed myself in that.
good for you.
I felt guilty because it felt too easy, like you buy
Super.
something for, I was in England, you buy something for 15p, you sell it for £2. And I was just like, it's too easy. I can't keep the
Right,
money.
right. Yeah, business isn't necessarily easy, as we'll see when we talk about your journey. But there are some things that I think entrepreneurs just see these opportunities and take advantage of them. So, as I mentioned, you went to UCSB. We don't have a business school. We
Mhm.
have a great entrepreneurial program. We don't have a business school. So, I have a little bit of a convoluted question for you. Um, two things. One, for younger people that are watching this, maybe they're in college, what should they do to get the most out of their college? Or maybe they're in high school getting ready to go. So what should they do to get the most out of their college that'll help them for sort of startup life? And then two, for anyone, whether they're in college or not, what are the personal characteristics that people should really hone? Like, okay, I need to do that better. I need to do this better. So convoluted question, but love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think on the college front, um, I feel like there are certain advantages to this kind of very short time period in your life. And the first one of those is you probably have more time than you're ever going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I didn't necessarily do this to its fullest capacity, but what I wish I would have done is to have taken some of that time that I had and actually, you know, not just relied on college to give me everything I needed to to start an entrepreneurial career after that. But to be calling up local businesses, people that you really respect, to try and get some
Mm-hmm.
of that, try and get some extracurricular work to get that real life experience. So at least here are my strengths, here are my skills. If I want to start my own business, here's where I have to compensate,
Mm-hmm.
and bring in other people to help. And I think the sooner you know yourself in that way, the better positioned you are.
Sure.
Um, and then I guess another amazing thing about that time in your life is I feel like it's the moment when people have the lowest expectations in regards to your credentials. And so, you know, you're not being judged on what's on your resume necessarily. They're judging you by the content of your character. They're judging you by, your level of excitement, your initiative, and you're still so embryonic in your career that I feel like it allows you to reach for things that maybe are higher than you'd reach for if you were further down the line. And so really taking advantage of of that, because you're kind of just your raw potential in a lot of people's eyes. And so I think that is such an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very specific to that time in your life. And then also just like very, very tangible and very practical. Taking that time as well, you have this dedication to your studies, but taking that time as well to do some outside learning and take some online courses that are things that you're going to need, or things you're passionate about, be it marketing, be it finance. There's so many resources for that these days, and kind of applying yourself in the same way that you're applying yourself to school,
Mm-hmm.
to that just will give you such a head start. Again, not relying on everything, especially if you're in a non-vocational school, not relying on that to give you what you need.
Yep. No, that's all good advice. I think another thing you sort of, it was embedded in what you said was, kind of lifting your head up a little bit from schoolwork and maybe starting that network. A lot of students feel like, okay, now I'll start my network. Well, yeah, it's great to start your network when you graduate, but it's better if you can start earlier, because you're going to start getting mentorships, and it'll make it easier for you to, make that segue between college and work life. So speaking of which, I know you got a really cool job at Imlacash, which was a really small kind of 2-person operation, Imlacash Organics. Talk to me a little bit about how you got that job, and then what that job taught you that helped you with Clevr.
Yeah. Getting the job was really, I was just keeping my ears open for opportunities, again, as I mentioned, to kind of go beyond what I was learning and put some of it into practice. And so I had a friend of a friend who told me that they were starting a food business that was rooted in ethical and transparent sourcing. And I was getting really into learning about food systems and permaculture at the time. And yeah, so I just asked him to grab coffee, and him and his partner turned up, and I just showed them how passionate I was about what they were doing and their idea. And they took me on as an intern, and it was at that stage where you do everything. And there was only 2 of them. And then I ended up being their first hire and was with them for 3.5 years.
Awesome.
And I guess in terms of learnings from that, I mean, I was coming in with a completely blank slate of what it looked like to work at any kind of company. And so I didn't have any preconceived notions of, what a workplace should be like, or how to interact with people. So I feel like it was very formative. And it was also quite a non-traditional workplace in a lot of ways. Like, everyone on the team was very close. We felt like family. We'd spend the weeks together, but then we'd also spend the weekends together. And learning the importance of having a really intimate company culture, not so much in a corporate, like, let's do an away day once a quarter, but more in a,
right.
I want to feel really connected to the people that I'm spending 70% of my waking hours with. I just saw how that then translated to such a deeper level of commitment to the work that we were all doing. And because the work was difficult, because it was a hustle, because it's startup life, having that connection was what fueled the level of commitment from everyone on the team. So I don't know how scalable that is, or how appropriate that is for every business at every stage, but at least while it's possible, and with Clevr, while we still are a small team, I've really tried to bring in that sense of like the merging of worlds of people's personal and work life, to make people feel really close and on the same path with where they're going. So that was really important. I also, I guess, on a more practical point, I saw what it took to run a business that had a grocery foundation as opposed to an online D2C foundation. And it took a small army to run a business like that. And it was part of why, when we were starting Clevr and there was just 2 of us, we chose to go the online route, because it was just so much easier to do that with less capacity and less people. And so, yeah, that was really big. I guess the last thing on that is, I think I really learned the value of compartmentalization. And by that, I mean, I saw the founders of Imlacash, Tucker and Philmat, they really modeled that, the startup co-founder life. They're at work until 7, 8, 9 o'clock, and they're working their asses off. And when they were outside of that, and they were, in other parts of their lives, they were able to, however stressful work was, they were able to put it aside. They were able to show up for the other, parts of their lives. And I saw how that allowed them to stay sane. And that was a really important lesson for me now, as I am kind of struggling with the same things.
Yeah, that's great that they were able to model that, you know, for you at that young age. And you're being really humble, because I know a little bit about like the situation you were in. Not that it was a bad situation, but you had a ton of autonomy, which is good and bad. And I think for folks listening to this and looking for insights, just be really honest with yourself. You know, you were a good fit for that situation. A lot of people wouldn't be a good fit for that situation. You know, you were able to deal with the ambiguity and just kind of figure it out. Everybody is good at that. So good on you for figuring that out and knowing and thriving in that environment. So 3.5 years, it's time to move on. I want to hear about how Clevr turned, if I have this right, it was sort of started out as a passion project. I think you were selling stuff out of a van or out of a truck, or I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But you were just hustling, right? You were just sort of hustling, creating drinks that were interesting and healthy for you. But tell us how that, you know, what was the tipping point where you were out there selling drinks, and then all of a sudden you said, maybe this is my next gig?
Yeah, well, I think the point where it stopped being a passion project and started being something, you know, we were very full-time focused on, was seeing how much better people felt when they were drinking these drinks. And, you know, just for context, for folks that aren't familiar with the product, we do upgraded functional latte drinks. So they're all oat milk based, and we use different mushrooms and probiotics and different elevated ingredients. And the reason we do that is because a lot of people struggle with the way that traditional black coffee, caffeine, tons of sugar in drinks, how it makes them feel, you know, like jitters and crash. And so we mitigate that with the ingredients that we use. And with the bar initially, you know, we were doing everything very by hand. Everything was 7 different ingredients and making our own nut milks. And, you know, these drinks made people feel amazing. And they'd come to us and say, how do I do this at home? I want to be able to recreate this. And the answer was always pretty disappointing, because for most people, you don't have 20 minutes in the morning. You don't have, you know, 15 different powders in your cupboard. It's just not practical. And there's a big barrier between, you know, these healthy, exciting new foods that people are starting to use to make themselves feel better and actually incorporating them into their lives. And so that was the opportunity for us, where we said, what we're doing is great, but it's really not applicable or practical for most people. What is that? We need to make this as easy and approachable as possible. Let's make a just add water drink. Let's take all the amazing ingredients from the bar that we use and we know make people feel good, but let's do it so someone can make it in 10 seconds. And yeah, then it was a year of formulation and playing with ingredients and really nailing down the most amazing sauces we could. And yeah, we were just so excited about being able to spread what we were doing beyond us physically being present at the bar.
Right. Yeah, because it's not scalable, right? It's fun to interact with people, but you can only do so much of that. Well, I cheat. I use milk, and I'm probably not so I'm a fan of the products. I'm probably not your typical customer, so I'm still a coffee drinker, but I was never like a 8 cup a day coffee drinker.
Yeah.
You know, actually I drink out of pretty small cups, so I might have 1.5 kind of small cups of coffee, and I'm usually pretty good. But occasionally I would then go back around 2, right, when your body's starting to do this.
Yeah.
You might have another cup of coffee. So what I've been doing is I've been using Clevr's products for those afternoon you know, dips or whatever.
Yeah.
And I haven't missed it. Like, I know some have a little bit of caffeine, some have none. There's no like energy high power, like here's a mega dose of caffeine. But what I found is I don't miss it. Like, I don't sit there and go, that was good, but I still need a cup of coffee. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the point. That was really the approach that we wanted to take, is meeting people where they're at, especially with flavor profile and texture, because ultimately, you know, part of what we want to do is provide a plant-based, healthier alternative. It can't taste healthy. It can't taste like it's a compromise. If that is the case, then it's not scalable, and it's not exciting to me to have a product that's applicable only to people that are willing to kind of drink
punish themselves.
Mushroomy, like, slightly punishing drink to make them feel good, because that's not most people.
Right. You could come out with that later, maybe, like the Punisher.
Yeah. Hardcore only, yeah.
But I'm not sure it would have wide appeal. So a lot of folks listening to this and reading the article are probably going to be aware that you had a high profile investor come your way, Meghan Markle. I'd just love to hear any insights you would want to share about how that came about, or any learnings for
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It actually came about really organically, which was so lovely for that to happen. She was gifted our product, she loved it,
Oh,
and the
cool.
rest is history. It's amazing when things happen like that, and also really feels so good to be so supported by another woman whose values really match what we're doing, and match what we're passionate about at Clevr. And yeah, in terms of learnings, I think it it's obviously such an incredible thing for something like that to happen, and was just absolutely surreal in all ways. And the hard work definitely didn't stop there.
Right.
And so having a big push, having momentum, it's not a silver bullet. It's about what you do with that, and how you keep that going and use that to fuel the fire. And so I feel like that has been my biggest takeaway is, in the moments when things are really good, obviously to not get complacent or not relax, just use that to fuel whatever the next stage is, and to keep thinking bigger and bigger. And maybe this sounds a little cheesy, but another thing that has just really struck me over the past year is whenever I'm approaching what feels like a step up, business wise, I feel I have a temptation to put on like a mask or a different persona to try and be
Mm,
what I imagine
mm,
that person wants me to be or is required. And I think everyone loses when you do that. And just turning up in the most authentic version of yourself is the most like long-standing technique, because the mask is going to come off eventually anyway. And so not being afraid to show up as you are, especially when like you're stepping up from a business perspective, I think it's more human, it's more attractive. It's like,
yeah.
yeah.
And we talked about sustainability earlier with your initial phase of the business. That's not sustainable. Like being someone else. I don't know about you, but I think very few people can maintain that, and those people are psychotic, right? Those are like the 3% of the population that can just be anybody, anytime. So
Yeah.
I think it's really good advice. Like go in, be yourself, and if that doesn't work for that person, it's probably in the long run better. You're better
Mm-hmm.
off if
It's
they're
good
buying into.
information.
Yeah, if they buy into something that isn't quite real, then you're gonna have conflicts down the road.
Well, yeah, and I think that at every stage, when I was 19, I thought when I was 21 I was going to be so much more grown up, and then when I was 21, when I was 25, I thought I was going to be. And I think there's probably always an element of feeling like slightly more out of your depth than maybe you really are, and just having that confidence
But it's
in.
called self-awareness. So
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing. Like I feel that way, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit older than you. So I think it's okay for that to, you don't want to have an imposter syndrome and sort of take it to
Yeah.
the extreme, but I think it's really good to be self-aware and kind of understand like where you are and where you still need to get to, and to always want to continue that growth and not feel like, okay, we're sort of there.
Mm-hmm.
Complacency is not rewarded in startups, as you
Mm-hmm.
know. So that was wonderful news for you, and it certainly gave you a lot of attention that you hadn't had before. So then you had some other very opportunistic and satisfying and rewarding exposure. So my understanding is Oprah did an Instagram post, maybe a minute and a half, where she actually mixed up a drink and showed everyone how easy it was to do it. And I saw one article and sort of researching for this conversation. There was one article that said it was $1 million post in free publicity. So again, that clickbait, I get it. They're over, it's a bit of hyperbole, but certainly that was immensely valuable because, as we know, Oprah can move markets, and she doesn't promote products that suck. And she's
Mm-hmm.
only going to promote something and talk about something that she legitimately uses and likes. So good for you on that. Like, how did that feel? So you had, Ms. Markle, then that Instagram post with Oprah came out. Like, what did that feel like at the time?
It was, again, surreal is the word that just keeps coming up. And for a little bit of context here, when when that happened, my co-founder and I weren't actually in the same place. And I was sitting at my desk. It was a Sunday night. It was, I think, like 6 or 7 on a Sunday night. And I was desperately trying to put the final tweaks on a new version of our website. We'd redone our website. And at that moment, I was, doing copy, like editing copy. I was moving things around. I was making sure we didn't have bugs. And this is, we didn't know this was going to happen. And the website is still not completely finished. Yep. And so that was what I was doing. And then I saw this notification pop up on my phone that said, Oprah's tagged you in a post. And I felt like I fell off my chair. And was just like slightly hyperventilating, and called my co-founder Raj, and he answered the phone, and he was wearing a hairnet, and he was in our commercial kitchen, because right up until the beginning of this year, we would work on our computers during the day. And then at nighttime and on weekends, we'd either be at events or we'd be in the kitchen making the product. We had a commercial kitchen that was in Galita. And he's there, he's mopping the floors. It's like 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. And it was just, I'm like, you have to open your phone right now. You have to look at Instagram. You're not going to believe what just happened. And it just so perfectly encapsulated the point at the business that we were at and how massive that moment was for us. And how grassroots we were and are. And it was just such a wild moment. And I love kind of coming back to that, because it really represents the attitude we have towards the business. Like, we're still very hands-on, and yeah, it was a moment I will never forget.
Congratulations on that. And then you attract strong, successful women, because I understand that Sara Blakely also is a fan and has, again, without compensation or dog in the fight, she's promoted Clevr as well. So how does that come about? I mean, that just must be like one after another. Like you've hit the trifecta. What's next?
Yeah, that was also such an amazing moment. And I think what was really interesting about that is just, there's so much noise online, and there's so many people promoting different products, and there's so many different ways to do it. And what really was so beautiful to me, and I think struck a chord with a lot of folks, and why that was a big moment for us, is it was so authentic. Like the way that she spoke about the product felt so like not commercial. It was just very organic, and it was very authentic. And she was in bed with a cup of chai and just talking about, how much she loved it. And she kind of took everyone through making it. And it was just like a reminder that those things really strike a chord in a different way. And she's also a thought leader and someone that people, I really respect, and a lot of people really respect. And yeah, that was an amazing moment for us.
Let's get back a little bit to a little bit of brass tacks and tactical conversation about Clevr. So one thing that might not be apparent to folks, and please go, anyone listening to this or reading this article, please go check it out. You will not be disappointed. What might not be obvious to some folks is that you actually have a subscription business. So it's not just people come one time and go, oh, that was okay. It's like people are coming back so often that they're signing up to various subscriptions. Any words of wisdom or insights on converting these one-time customers? Because that's the goal of every entrepreneur online, right? Everybody wants to have some sort of recurring business model. Yeah. How have you guys done it, and what would you share to someone who's trying to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the most basic principle is you have to make things easy for people. I mean, that's the whole point of a subscription in the first place, but there's so many drop-off points, and to get to that point in the first place of converting that person. And I think life is tricky enough, and what you don't want is to have to make someone make a hard decision. And so you have to understand where the pain points are along the way. And the way you do that is by talking to people. And no matter how much you're scaling, I think not losing sight of that piece. And there's still ways to do it at scale, right? Like we're not calling up everyone and having conversations with them, but something that I've done lately is I just put a survey in our post-purchase. So when someone's checked out, there's one question that pops up, which is, where can we do better? Where can we improve? And there's different options there. And then people can add notes if they want to add things. And like, I look at that a couple times a week. And I think, you want your customers to have a say in where you're going. And if you're not if you're not listening, if you're not hearing them, you're kind of navigating blind, because you're always going to be within the silo of your own thoughts. And ultimately, like, they're the people who are going to be directing, whether your business is successful or not. And so, treat your customers like royalty, but also treat them like friends. And just iterate and be nimble and be okay to, someone told me this phrase the other day. Oh, strong opinions loosely held. So feel, really feel strongly about,
have conviction,
have
but be
conviction,
willing to listen.
drop it at, at a drop of a hat, your path, and be really convicted about that until you find a reason to change.
Yep.
So again, eliminating pain points, really, really listening. And then also, for businesses that are at a similar stage as us, where, we are still a small business, I've struggled with kind of breaking the fourth wall and actually coming out and being a bit more front and center and saying, hey, we're a small business, we're passionate about what we're doing, we're real people, we're not a big corporation. Like, we were physically making your drinks until not that long ago. And we're real people behind the screen. And I think it's invaluable to be forthcoming in that way, because people want to support other people, they don't want to support an entity. And so I've struggled with that, but I'm trying to do it more. And I think that is also an amazing way to create like a strong brand affiliation. And
I'm not just trying to flatter you. I mean, you're obviously very good at it. You're very good at making those connections. Why do you say you struggle at doing that? Is it time commitment, or?
I just normally have a reticence to it, and the other folks on my team are the ones that are pushing me a little more. And I think it's also the way that most of that is done is over a camera, right? It's on the internet, and I don't even have a personal social media, so I'm not the kind of person that's used to making videos. I'm gonna make stories. This is me in my day. It's never been my style, and so trying to lean more into that. But it is really powerful, and I so appreciate it from other brands. I want to know the faces,
right,
of the people that I'm supporting.
So I sense that you're part of your reticence is you are humble. Right. You don't want it to become an ego thing where, totally. We've all seen that.
Entrepreneurship is a hard journey, whichever way you cut it. And no, of course, we're constantly kind of creating our own reality, and other people are creating it for us. So when you see someone else that's doing something and modeling something, it opens up the possibility for you in a really powerful way. So I really agree with that.
Yep. Yeah. Good. So don't be shy. Get out there. So I just want to end on, what's next for Clevr? I'm sure you've got a lot of things cooking, pun intended. What can we expect from Clevr in the coming months and years?
Yeah. Well, we're just in the business of doubling down on the things that we're already doing and that we already, that we care about. And so for us, what that looks like is growing the team, bringing on more people we're all at max capacity the whole time. And so every time we add 1 or 2 people, it's incredible. So we're going to keep doing that. I'm working on some fun holiday flavors right now. I still do all of our formulation myself. And so, normally at night when I finish work, I'll get in the kitchen and do some kind of tinkering in that. And so working on that right now. And then also probably a funding round at some point, in the near future. So just feeling really good and excited and motivated, and can't wait to see what the next year is going to be like.
That's awesome. So if somebody's interested in maybe working on your team, like, is there, do they just go to the jobs at Clevr Blends, or what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Just shoot us an email. It's on the bottom of the website, but it's wegotyu@cleverblends.com or hannah@cleverblends.com. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So anyone interested in checking out this possible, I mean, it's a great opportunity, right? Because you guys are right at that point of exploding. I mean, you've already done incredibly well, but there's so much more in front of you right now. So for somebody that's stoked about joining a small, aggressive team that has a great, authentically good for you product, great way to describe that. They might be the perfect team member, just waiting to email you.
Yeah, we're a fun group too.
All right, well, Hannah, I really do appreciate it. I know what you have going on, and so for you to take the time out to talk to me here. I know it's not easy to carve out the time, so I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
It was so fun. It was so fun. I love getting to chat. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share my story. And I also really appreciate it. That was really fun.
Right on. Take care.